everybody, happy new year, happy 2024. So crazy that it's already 2024. So today we are going to do what I think is one of the most important things to do, especially as a student going into a new semester, and that's to really take some time to put some intention and some thought, some action behind your goals. So one thing about college is you can either just kind of float through it and end up where you end up, or you can put intention behind how you show up every semester, how you show up every month, how you show up every week in every class, and end up exactly where you want to end up. And doing goals is part of putting intention into being exactly where you want to be. So it's a really powerful exercise. We always tell our students at the beginning of every semester, make sure you've written down your goals, make sure you've really thought about what you want that semester to look at. So let me just get my screen shared with you all. Okay, so hopefully you all can see this. So first things first, we're going to do this as an exercise together. So I'm going to give you time to do it all as we go along. So first things first is you just want to let yourself dream. Before anything else, let yourself dream. Basically, what do you want this semester to look like? Semester. What do you want it to look like academically? What do you want it to look like in terms of maybe personal or emotional or physical growth? What do you want to look like in terms of maybe your family, your relationships, your friendships? What do you want this semester to be for you? Here's the biggest part about letting yourself dream. Don't limit yourself by worrying about how you'll get there. We'll talk about how you'll get there. We'll talk about some tools. We'll talk about some tips that are going to help you with the how. But before we go how, we need to know what. So your perfect ideal semester without any limitations, what does that look like to you? So I'm going to give you some time to dream about it. I'm going to give you some time to think about it. Go ahead and write all of that down. If you're watching this as a recording, you can pause it and keep going. If you're with me live, hopefully you've at least got one or two things down, and I encourage you to circle back around to this and continue to work on some of your goals and continue to really dream about what you want this semester to look like for yourself. So now we're going to talk about how to make sure your goals are optimized. So here's an example of a really, really common goal we hear from students. Do well in class. Classes, struggling with typing today, or get good grades, right? Everybody wants to get good grades. Everybody wants to do well. But how do you know if you just say, I want to get good grades, end of the semester, how do you know if you achieve that or not? How do you know if it was good? Good's very subjective. So some people a C is good. Some people passing is good. Some people that's awful. So it differs for every person. What if I say get a 4.0 or earn all A's and B's? Now I'm going to exactly know if I did it or not, because it's not subjective anymore. It's very much either I got a 4.0 or I didn't. Either I got all A's and B's or I didn't. So take a second to look at your goals and see, are your goals measurable? If they're not measurable, how can you change them to make them measurable? Because if we can't measure it, then we don't get that satisfaction of knowing for a fact that we achieved our goals, meaning we don't get that little celebration. of achieving our goals. And that little celebration that you get as you're accomplishing your goals and as you're achieving your goals, that's going to help you build confidence in yourself. That's going to help you build momentum. That's going to help you really continue to set bigger goals and bigger goals and bigger goals and get exactly where you want to be. So one part of that, make them measurable so you can give yourself that check mark. You can give yourself that pat on the back. I know it sounds silly, but it's really, really important for our self-esteem. So take a second. Again, if you're watching the recording, pause the video, go back and think about how check your goals and make sure they're measurable. And if they're not, think about what you can do to change them, to make them something that you can measure. Okay, so next, if your goals are measurable and you feel like you've got a pretty good list, now we want to kind of divide our goals. Sometimes we've got these huge, big goals, and then we've got these smaller goals. So you've got these huge, big goals, like almost all of our students, most of our students have this big goal of going to medical school, right? Get accepted to medical school. Cool. In order to do that, earn all A's and B's, not G's, B's. Or get a 4.0, grades. Grades are usually a smaller goal that's going to help you get to that bigger goal of getting accepted to medical school. Well, we could even break earn all A's and B's down a little bit further. Well, if you want to earn all A's and B's, or if you want to get a 4.0, I'm going to go with 4.0 because it's probably, I would need to just pick one to break it down, and it's probably easier for me to break this one down real quick. So if you want to get a 4.0, what do you need to do that? Well, you need to earn A's on exams. So then that's a smaller goal that's going to help you get to the bigger goal. You also need to turn in all assignments on time. That's also a great goal. That is a smaller goal that's going to help you get to the bigger goal. So whenever we have these really big goals, like go to medical school, sometimes that can seem kind of daunting. It can be a little bit overwhelming to think about because there's so many things that have to happen to make that big goal come true. So whenever you have a really big goal like that, think about smaller things that you can break your goal down into that are going to help you get to the big goal that you have. So take a second and look at your goals. First, classify them. Are they really big goals, or are they just kind of more basic goals? If they're more basic goals, you don't think you can break them down anymore, that's great. Start with that. But if you've got some goals on your list that are a little bit bigger, think about what smaller steps you can break them down into to add to your goals. Again, this is going to give you more things to check off, but it's also going to give you some direction, some guidance to make that goal happen, to give yourself a little bit more accountability, to catch yourself a little bit more earlier if you're kind of getting off path of where you need to be. And also, same thing, it's going to help you boost your confidence a little bit more as you go through and as you're accomplishing these things as you go. So take a second, again, if you're watching the recording, pause this video and go through and break your goals down into these smaller steps. Okay, so now you've got your goals, you've got your dreams. I'm going to kind of summarize up here. So you've got your dreams, no limits, right? And then we make your goals measurable. All your goals are, you dreamed, you took your dreams, you made them measurable. And then sorry, I was a little bit aggressive. So after you made your goals measurable, now you broke bigger goals down into smaller goals that will get you there. Okay, so maybe, hopefully, this is starting to look a little bit like a plan of how you're going to get exactly where you want to be. But we're not quite there because we also need to talk about, now we're going to talk a little bit more about the how. That comes from a lot of habits. I would be doing you a disservice if we talked about goals and we didn't also come around and talk a little bit about habits. So take some time and think about, what habits do you think you need to develop in order to make these goals happen? The reason I like to ask this is because the person who is achieving these goals and accomplishing these goals is not the exact same person as who you are right now, who you are today. You're going to have to change. You're going to have to grow as a person. The person that you are freshman year of college is not the same person you are walking into your first year of medical school. There's no way. You've learned a lot. You've grown a lot. You've developed a lot of skills, and you've changed your habits. You have to. So take a second, think about last semester. Think about how last semester went. Think about how you want this semester to go. What habits do you think you need to develop? What skills do you think you need to improve in order to make these goals happen? One way to help you think about that is to maybe think about bad habits from last semester. What bad habits do you have last semester that you need to improve upon? So again, watching the recording, pause this video, and take some time to think about your habits. You could write down what your bad habits were. Maybe you don't want to choose all of them. Maybe it's too much. Maybe it's too overwhelming. Maybe just choose one bad habit to start with that you need to improve. Maybe you stay up really late scrolling on your phone on TikTok, and therefore you're staying up too late. You're not getting enough sleep. You're sleeping in too late. You're snoozing your alarm a lot. I snooze my alarm a lot. That's totally me. So maybe you have a tendency to show up late to class. And so by the time you get there, you've missed the first 5 minutes of lecture. Maybe you procrastinate a bit. Probably you procrastinate a little bit. Almost everybody does that. Maybe you don't start studying until the day before the exam, 2 days before the exam, 3 days before the exam. That's not really enough time to learn material. So think about it. Pause this video. Think about what habits you need to improve upon. Think about what skills you need to develop. Okay. So hopefully you've got a little bit of a list of habits. There are certain habits and certain skills that we always suggest our students to at least try, at least think about, because, we've worked with students for the several years. Last year we worked with over 500 students. We've kind of noticed some patterns in things that our most successful students do, and things that students who are struggling a little bit tend to not do. So I'm going to give you a sneak peek of some of the most successful ones. The absolute game changer for the most successful students who just are rocking their classes, the thing they do is to spend, like 15 to 30 minutes at the end of every day reviewing your notes from that day. Game changer. Here's why. If you take notes in class, every time you're in class, you take notes, right? Let's say you don't go back and look at those notes again until it's time to study for the exam. Hopefully not the day before the exam, but even just a few days before the exam, you go back and you try to look at your notes from the days of classes that you've had. Well, if you're going to look at your notes, you're going to have probably 2 weeks worth of notes. You're not going to remember each individual class. So if there's something in your notes that doesn't make sense to you, well, you're SOL, basically. You're not going to remember, you're not going to be able to fix it. Also, you're going to try to remember material content that you haven't really seen in a couple weeks. It's going to be a lot of material that you're trying to cram back into your brain that you've kind of only maybe seen once. It's not super effective. Your notes don't really serve you by that point. But if you look at your notes again that same day, you're going to remember the class because you already did it that day. It's going to be a smaller chunk of information. You're going to be able to catch errors in your notes or things in your notes that aren't clear. Because remember, your notes are for you and only you. So if your notes don't make sense to you, then they're useless. They need to make sense to you. So if you see something in your notes from class that day that doesn't really make sense to you, well, you know right away, I need to clarify this. I either need to change the way it's written down, or I need to go to office hours, or I need to talk to a TA, I need to talk to a classmate, I need to talk to a tutor, I need to talk to somebody to make sure that I understand this piece of information, because as it is in my notes, it does not make sense to me. Or maybe if you understand the concept, you understood it in class and you notice it doesn't make sense in your notes, you can change your notes, you can improve them to make sure that it does make sense to you whenever you do start to study for your exam. Also, you're going to see the material a second time in the same day. It makes it exponentially more likely that you're going to understand it, that you're going to remember something more about it. And then also it's going to help you prepare for the next class. The next day of class, you're going to be that much more prepared because you've seen the material again. If you have a pop quiz, you're going to be that much more likely to actually do well on your pop quiz. It's a game changer. I cannot recommend doing this enough. Another habit that is extremely successful is to, what I call, preview the material before you go to class. There's so many different ways that you can do this. In our programs, we do this with our students. We essentially have lessons. We teach them material before they go into their class. But if you don't have something like that, if you're not working with us, you can use your textbook. A lot of professors give videos nowadays before their class. They give pre-lecture videos. They assign pre-lecture reading. They do that for a reason. If you see the material before you go to your lecture and learn it, you're actually going to be able to engage with the lecture and understand what's going on that much better. If you don't even think about the material until you get to the lecture, you're going to be so busy trying to write down what's going on. You're not going to be able to pay attention. You're not going to know what's more and less important. And it's going to be basically like an overwhelming maze. It's really easy to get just glazed over and just not gain a lot from your lecture whenever you do that. So this previewing the material, it makes your lessons, your lectures, your teacher that much more of a resource for you. It helps you utilize that resource that much better. Last one I'm going to give you in terms of habits, it doesn't really have as much to do with your courses, your classes, but is to set some sort of morning and evening routine. Our bodies thrive on routine. If you have something that is routine, it's going to make whatever you're trying to do so much easier for you. So set a routine for yourself that you follow every morning. Whenever I get up, I brush my teeth, I spend 10 minutes doing a meditation, I have a cup of coffee, and then I'm ready for the day. I do some stretches, then my body's ready for the day, and I start feeling invigorated. At night, I read at least a page. Sometimes that's all I can do if it's been a particular exhausting day, but I read at least a page of my book. And that helps my body know, okay, it's time to go to bed. It's time to wind down. Some people like to have a cup of tea. Some people like to do some stretches. Some people like to do meditations. It doesn't matter. Anything works for you as long as you try something. If it doesn't work for you, try something else. But setting a morning and an evening routine, in the morning, it's going to help you make sure that you wake up and you start your day in the best headspace that you can be. In the evening, it's going to help you kind of wind down, and it is also going to help you stop from just staying up super late playing video games or being on your phone or doing whatever it is that's going to keep you up till 2 a.m. when you should have gone to bed like 3 hours ago. So that's another habit that I recommend trying out that, again, can be a bit of a game changer for you. So just some recommendations for you. I hope this was helpful for you all. Really, overall, just as a summary, you've got your dreams. Exactly what you want out of your life. Those are your dreams. Think about them, really put some thought into it. And then you're taking your dreams and you're turning them into measurable goals. And then you're taking those goals and you're breaking them down into smaller goals that are going to help you along the way. And then you're thinking about habits that are going to help you make those goals possible. And you're thinking about what skills you need to develop, what habits you need to improve upon to make those goals happen. I hope that was helpful for you. Wishing you all a wonderful fantastic 2024, and I will be seeing you all pretty regularly. I will see everybody next week.